Hello, dear lovers of history and antiquity, and those who lived back then. I'm your guide through places where the air conditioner was replaced by screaming, Wi-Fi by a bonfire, and the spa by a log you were tied to for hardening. Imagine you fall asleep listening to a mythological podcast, but accidentally grabbed headphones that are a time machine, and you wake up not just anywhere, but in ancient Sparta. Yes, that Sparta, where, as we love to be told, everyone was handsome, brave, muscular, and lived by their word in a porridge made of weeds. Well, let's be honest, you wouldn't last there a single day. But don't rush to take offense. Alexi from accounting wouldn't last either, and neither would I. It's not weakness, it's the survival instinct. Because that romantic image of a heroic warrior walking in the rain with a sword comes with some fine print. No right to breakfast, no right to a private life, no right to shampoo. So get comfortable. Banish the image of Gerard Butler from 300 from your head and listen to how it really was. Sand, pain, nothing but porridge and shame, and not a shred of fertile soil on the horizon. While you're getting settled, find a moment. Like this video if you enjoy what I do. If you're not with us yet, subscribing would be a good sign. And down in the comments, tell me which topic would be most interesting to you and what time you usually go to bed. I'm always curious what time people join this nightly journey. And now it's time to listen. Dim the lights, wrap yourself in a blanket, and let's go. We'll start our journey in the morning. After a Spartan morning, you might have to talk with your therapist for a long time, if such a thing even existed there. Picture this. You open your eyes. The first thing you feel is such cold that your socks, if you even have any on, would themselves apply for political asylum in Athens. And no, it's not because you slept without a blanket. It's because there is no blanket at all. You're on the floor, a stone floor, and your bed is something between a sack and hay and a very aggressive hedgehog. What do you hear? No, not the bell of an alarm clock with your favorite tune, but a loud shout, "Get up!" The voice of this person has more enthusiasm than all the office managers on this planet combined. By the way, he's also a Spartan, about 12 years old. That's right. Here, your alarm clock can be a child with a stick who likes to chase sleepyheads around. You try to turn over, and your back says, "Weren't we promised we could sleep?" But you have to get up, because someone is already gently nudging you with a foot. Very Spartan. Gentle, indeed. You look around to see if this is a dream. No, it's reality. There are a few other equally unfortunate people around, and they've already stood up and are looking at you as if you just ordered a soy latte in a place that has no milk. Neither soy nor latte. "Sleep soft, did you?" asks your neighbor, laughing. "Aye," you answer, trying not to cry. That's highly frowned upon here. You want to stretch, but instead of yoga, they hand you a stick and say, "Here, hold this. You'll need it. Now hurry up." "Hurry where?" you ask, but they're already walking off. Yesterday you were strolling home from the supermarket dreaming, "I wish I could become a warrior in Sparta." Well, here you are. You stand up and try to shake the hay off you, but the hay won't let go. It clings to you like your cat does when it sees the pet carrier for a vet visit. The air smells, how to say delicately, as if all the gyms in the world gathered here after a month without cleaning. That's because the room is cramped. There's no bathing place, and the window is just a crack barely letting in morning light, along with a whole lot of dust. You think maybe you'd wash up? Maybe this isn't Sparta, but a third-year college dormitory? But no. There are shields and spears on the walls, pebbles underfoot, and from outside, You already hear shouting, "Get out to the training ground, run!" And then you realize this is not even the start of your day, just the prologue. An older man appears in the room. He looks as if he was molded from the same stones you were just sleeping on. He strides past you and shoves you in the shoulder. "Move it, softy. This isn't Athens," he snaps. And he walks on, leaving behind a trail of sweat and, oddly, laurel leaves. You scramble to stand faster, so you don't look like a softy. But as you begin this morning quest, you're thinking, is this really the heroic world I was shown in the movies? Why does it feel more like a military camp for teenagers with no Wi-Fi and no shower? By the way, the footwear here is something special. It seems they make shoes out of cowhide and your patience. They fit horribly, pinching everywhere, but at least they're cheap and tough. By now, everyone else has come outside. Someone is dragging a rock, another is squatting with a log across his shoulders, and you stand there with your stick, trying to pretend you're really ready for Spartan life. Only one thought itches in your head. Do they even serve hummus here? On the way to the courtyard, they shove some piece of cloth, a bundle of leather straps, a sort of belt into your hands. You look at it and wonder, where does the sock go? Where's the blanket? Where on earth is my robe? Your skinny, cocky neighbor snorts and says, "Hurry up, softy, we're going to wash up now." "Why? We just washed yesterday," you protest in surprise, and he answers dead serious, adjusting his straps. "Yes, we did, but you'll get dirty again." You glance at the others. Everyone's already up and dressed, though it looks odd, more like a caveman cosplay. Hair is all must, faces are grim. Someone is already moseying toward the exit. Someone else is grinding their teeth and loosening up their shoulders. You follow, still hoping there might be a sink, soap, and towels around the corner. But all you see for now is a trough of water filled with petals and dirt. Someone's splashing around in it and giggling. Sand is finding its way into your sandals as a cool wind blows, and you catch yourself thinking, "Man, I wish I was back home under a blanket with Wi-Fi and a cup of coffee." But no, here you're facing a whole line at the trough and a mysterious procedure called hardening. Your neighbor elbows you. "Don't fall behind. This is just the beginning. Soon you'll even get fed," he says, looking at you as if you're some terrifying threat. The first thing you see when they lead you to the washing area is that same trough, which from a distance seemed like a pretty good idea. Up close, it no longer seems that way. The water is the color of tea on its fourth steep, and it smells like goat fat left in a sauna for a week. But everyone here pretends it's perfectly normal. Some plunge their faces straight in, others dip a handful and pour it over themselves. You stand in line watching the guy in front of you briskly wipe his face with something that suspiciously resembles a piece of old wool. And then you realize there will be no towels. Soap is a fantasy too. Conditioner for your hair, another fairy tale. "Come on, no jokes," your neighbor says with a wink. By now, even many people's hair has given up and run away. Just don't take too much water and don't stand there for long. Here it's worth its weight in gold. "But it's clean water, isn't it?" you ask timidly. "Huh, and you're picky too," they say, and the whole line bursts into laughter. You plunge your hands into the water and feel how cold it is. So cold your fingers beg to resign. Your face instantly flushes red. The sand in your hair turns to grit and trickles down your neck, and you dream of only one thing: finishing as fast as possible and wiping yourself with something. But there's nothing to dry off with. Everyone just shakes the water off like wet dogs and moves on. So once you've supposedly washed yourself in that trough, you think, well, now I can at least brush my teeth. And here's where it gets interesting. Where are the toothbrushes? You ask. They look at you as if you just ordered a chia avocado smoothie. What? Your neighbor repeats. I want to brush my teeth, you say. Are you kidding? Half of us don't live to 30 here. Why would we need toothbrushes? The reaper won't even have time to do anything. Instead of a brush and paste, they hand you a twig from some shrub. Fine, you think. Gnaw on that, and you'll be clean enough. And you gnaw, because there's no alternative. And the taste of this twig is like eating sand, soap, and a centuries-old curse all at once. After that, you watch as some Spartans begin rubbing sand into their skin. Yes, sand. Why, you wonder? So our skin becomes like stone, one replies proudly, rubbing himself down until he's like squeaky sandpaper. You try it too, and realize you'd have been better off staying under your blanket, quietly alone. And the smells. Oh, the smells. The air is saturated with sweat, dust, and smoke. But nobody here is embarrassed about it. On the contrary, the more authentically you smell, the more respect you earn. Character replaces deodorant here, and you standing there sniffing yourself think, is this really that legendary Spartan cleanliness? There you stand, all wet and sandy, twigs still between your teeth, and probably a little broken inside, when suddenly everyone around loudly shouts something like "Go!" in unison and starts streaming out of the yard. Then you realize, that's it. Cleanliness time is over. If you didn't make it, that's your problem alone. Nobody gives an extra 10 minutes for creams and tonics. At the exit stands an elder, giving you an inspection from head to toe. And interestingly, he couldn't care less that your hair is still dripping, that you're covered in sand scratches, or that there's a brown stain on your cheek from God knows what in that trough. The main thing is, you must not look weak. It's okay to be dirty and panting, but weak? No way. On his way out, your neighbor whispers, "Now you're a real Spartan." Well, at least you smell like one. And everyone, including you, goes off somewhere else. You're still trying to shake off the remaining sand from your shoulders and thinking, great, now there absolutely can't be any bacteria in my skin. They just won't survive here. Someone at the exit jokes, well, now you're ready for breakfast and battle. You'll see which is scarier. You've just recovered a bit from the trough and the sand, and a warm thought glimmers inside. Finally, now there will be food. I mean hummus, bread, cheese, olives, something. And so they usher you into the dining hall. Although dining hall is a big exaggeration, the place feels more like a stable without the horses, but smelling of people, smoke, and rotten cabbage. On the wooden table, there are clay bowls, and in each one, something unpredictable. At best, there's a porridge the color of mud, and a few dry pieces of bread. At worst, a black broth with wood chips floating in it, and something suspiciously wriggling. Your neighbor, of course, has already grabbed his share of bread in advance and tosses a piece at you. Here, take it while it's warm. You grab it and immediately realize that warm here means not quite hard enough to kill someone. It's so dry and tough you could skewer a boar with it. You try to bite off a chunk and your jaw protests. What are you doing, man? That's a rock, someone says. Chew. It strengthens the spirit, someone else encourages. So you chew and chew a long, long time, and finally you start tasting it. Somewhere under layers of dust and despair, you just barely detect grain. So you've almost won your battle with the bread. Your jaws click a bit, but your pride warms you. Well, at least I ate a piece. And then they bring you the crown jewel of the Spartan menu, the famous black broth. The bowl of it steams like a sauna on Monday and looks horrifying. Here, says your neighbor, A real Spartan without this broth is like a sword without a sharp edge. What is it? You ask carefully. Pork, blood, vinegar, and a secret, he says. What's the secret? You ask. Never ask, he replies mysteriously. You scoop some out with a spoon. The broth is thick, sticky, a bit salty, a bit sour, and a bit creepy. But everyone else eats it and even crunches with delight. How can you refuse? They say. You take a sip, and for the first few seconds, it seems nothing terrible happened. But then your stomach whispers, this is not what we agreed to. What was that, you think? Your brain tries to reassure you. It's okay. It's history. It's authenticity. It's an experience. But your soul quietly screams, this is horror. One more sip and I'm running away. They stare at you, waiting to see if you'll handle a second sip. You grit your teeth, already a bit wobbly after the bread, and swallow another. You don't want to look weak in front of people who could kill you with a glance. After a few spoonfuls of that black broth and endless negotiations with the bread, you're sitting over the bowl, feeling your stomach looking back up at you and asking, can we not do this again today? But the breakfast quest isn't over yet. They slide another bowl at you with porridge, dry as a desert, and so bland it seems they must have cooked it without any spices on purpose, just to keep you focused on your suffering. And yes, you eat it too. Why? Because everyone else is eating. Here nobody asks, is there anything else? And now comes the tastiest part, after the meal. Everyone briskly wipes their mouths with the backs of their hands. Someone scrapes the last drops of broth off the table with bread and eats that too. Nothing goes to waste. Some folks even grab an onion or a handful of olives if they're lucky enough to have any left. You sit there watching and think, fine, I'll pretend this is fast food. And then you realize it's just fast, not food. But there is one plus. Now, after this breakfast, you're definitely ready for anything. Battle, mud, even being struck by lightning. Whatever. If you survive that black broth, nothing much else seems so scary. Suddenly someone claps you on the shoulder and says, well, Spartan, now you're one of us. Well, at least you'd have been one of the undead soon enough if you hadn't survived. Everyone laughs together. You try to smile too, but your tongue is still busy negotiating with that cursed porridge. After you survive the bread and broth ordeal, they ceremoniously send you to your home, so to speak. This is your rest and shelter now, your neighbor says, opening the door. You peek inside and at first think it's a joke or another endurance test. A Spartan house is basically a rectangle of clay and wood with only benches, one table, and in the corner, something that vaguely looks like a bed. That bed is a pile of hay covered with a rough woolen blanket about as heavy as a small cow. And it smells about as wonderful as that implies. You touch the blanket, and it feels like it twists your fingers back, like an older brother in the yard. You sit on the hay. It's prickly, it crumbles, and it probably even lives its own life. This is where you sleep, explains your neighbor. You ask, ah, so where are the pillows? He looks at you like a child asking where the Wi-Fi is. Why? You're not 3 years old. This makes your neck stronger and your character tougher, he says. You notice another interesting detail. From the corners of the room, a few spiders are watching you closely. Apparently, they're permanent residents here and have more right to this place than you do. They don't even bother to run away. Probably they've been toughened up too. You're lying on this amazing bed, trying not to move so you don't scare off the spiders. And you notice more things. First, the sand. It's everywhere. On the floor, on the table, under the blanket, in your hair, in your bowl, even in the air. Sand here is like a neighbor who never moves out. You try to sweep it away with your hand, and a minute later it's back, with friends. Second, the smell. It's a unique blend of hay, wool, bonfire smoke, and goat presence. Because yes, there's a goat here too. It's calmly sitting in the corner, chewing on something from your hay, looking at you with disdain. Oh, a newbie. Another tourist, it seems to think. Your neighbor coming in notices your slight bewilderment and says, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it. If the goat doesn't mind, it means this place is good." "Is it always here?" you ask. "Where else would it be?" he says, bemused. You try sweeping the floor a little, and you notice everyone reacts with a mixture of mockery and pity. "Were you born in a palace or what?" they say. Here the main thing is just that it doesn't stink so much that the neighbor's house gets sick. The rest is a matter of taste. Meanwhile, a bit more dust trickles from the roof. A lizard scurries in a corner, and the goat has already nibbled at the edge of the blanket. You catch yourself thinking, well, at least the Wi-Fi wouldn't work here anyway. On the bright side, it's authentic. When evening comes, you'll also realize that this house is not just cold, it's ambitiously cold. The walls don't so much keep the heat as they remind you that heat was invented once, but it never made it to Sparta. You'll try to cocoon yourself under your cow blanket, so only your nose is sticking out. Still, you'll feel a draft from all the cracks, from the door, the roof, even the floor. The air is dry but icy. The goat snoozes indifferently and occasionally huffs warm breath onto your arm, as if deliberately teasing you. "So, tourist? Cold?" "Yeah," you mumble. And the nighttime sounds add to the charm. Something hisses in the dark. Lizards' little feet rustle somewhere. Occasionally you hear someone outside calling out and striking a spear on a shield just to test your nerves. Above you the beams creak, below the floorboards crackle. At some point you realize this isn't a house, it's a stress resistance gym. But there are upsides. You can learn to sleep even when someone next to you is sharpening a knife, or the goat is loudly crunching your hay. And you wake up in the morning a bit of a plank, a bit of a camel, a bit of a yogi. The neighbor will cheer you up in the morning. Just you wait. In a week you'll fall asleep anywhere. Gravel, frost, rain, even with a goat on your head, he says, and you almost believe him. So you emerge from this, let's say, cozy house, a little more covered in hay, dust, and possibly the scent of goat. The sun is already warming things, and the air carries the smell of sweat, smoke, and ambition. And finally, you notice the Spartans looking at you. A whole street of stern, sunburned, weathered, but unbelievably strong people. They seem to know how to speak with their eyes, and those eyes say something like, "What is this miracle in a tunic? He's still alive? Well, let's see." There's a group of kids around 7 years old, but their biceps are already like a modern fitness trainer's. They pinch each other, steal glances at you. One even says out loud, "Look at him chewing bread like an old man." "And he's scared of spiders," adds another. The adults do not laugh. Their faces are stoic, severe, as if they were born with that expression, like you owe them money. You try to wave a friendly hello, hi, and immediately hear a sigh, "Oh, such an athlete." And you keep walking. More gazes size you up as you go. Someone presses lips together. Another nods toward your shield. Someone whispers something about your posture. People are looking at you like you're an undercooked cutlet on a wedding buffet. You keep going down the street trying to look at least a little brave. You think maybe someone will cry, "Leave him alone, he's just a tourist." But no. On the contrary, another delegation approaches you. This time it's older women, Spartan grannies. Oh, these ladies are scary even to think about. If you thought your modern grandmother was strict when she says, wear a hat, these ones could pierce your soul with one glance and ask, and you, who are you? What are you doing here? The first one marches up, frowning, sizing you up from head to toe. Thin neck, pale arms, timid eyes. Well, don't worry, we'll make a real tough one out of you yet. The second one leans over your shoulder, checks how you're holding your shield, and says, that's how you hold it, or you'll drop it. Don't turn back. The third looks like she's just there to scare you. She slowly twirls a stick in her hands and hisses, sweet boys don't live long here. You're no longer sure if this is part of some show or if they really are about to give you a survival test right there on the street. Also, it's amazing how these women manage to look so formidable, even while sitting on the porch, cracking nuts and raising chickens. Each chicken seems to know your personal plank record and is ready to judge. You walk on, dozens of eyes watching you, feeling like you're hummus in a world of axes, soft and white, and everyone wants to test your strength. You're almost at the end of the street, thinking maybe things will calm down, and here comes one more surprise. A group of local tough guys looking like they were born with washboard abs and spears in their hands. They stand against the wall, catch your eye and smile, but it's not the smile you expected. More like, I wonder if he'll run if we shout at him. One of them steps closer and asks, who are you? You try to squeeze out, well, I'm here to learn, but he cuts you off. Learn. Here we don't teach, here we survive. The rest of the guys start laughing, and you think, this is the worst self-improvement course. A bit of fighting and a whole lot of silence. Strangest of all, nobody praises you. Not even when you try holding the shield straight, or when the goat isn't so afraid of you. Nobody says, good job, or, oh, progress. To their eyes, you will long remain just this hummus fellow, soft, white, and not very useful. Only in the evening, when you're walking back home, someone casually says, well, he's still alive. Maybe there's hope. And you hear in that words almost a compliment, almost a bit of hope. So now it's time to prove you're not just a hummus-eating tourist. In Sparta, work is not an office with a coffee machine and a Zoom call at 10. Here the word work is more like survive. It's a load that would kill a small cow. You don't even have time to ask what you can do when they slap a rock half your size into your hands and say, here, train with this. And you're like, where do I take it? Up, they say. Then down, then up again. Basically, that's it. Carry it, put it down, lift it, carry it again. Nobody tells you when it ends. Nobody asks how you feel. How you feel here doesn't matter. Your neighbor winks and adds, this is like an open book exam, except a mistake is death. Nearby, others are chopping wood, sharpening spears, all in silence. They rarely speak, but their hands and eyes say, if you drop the rock, you're not ready yet. If you hold out, then there's something to work with. You haul the stone up a hill, heart pounding, hands shaking, and the local guy walks beside you without breaking a sweat. He looks at you and dryly says, still alive? Then one more lap. And in that moment you start to understand, in Sparta, work isn't something you get paid for. It's something that squeezes everything out of you. After the rocks and the wood cutting, they say, now food. You think, finally lunch and maybe joy. But no, food is also work here. First you are sent to find something edible. They literally say, if you want to eat, first catch it, dig it up, or pick it. And here you learn that even the bread on the table is earned by a marathon of harvesting wheat, threshing it, dealing with the grindstones. And this bread is so hard, you could use it as a shield. Nearby, someone is already boiling the famous black brew, and bro, that's not a smoothie. Others dig trenches for roots or gather olives that run away from you of their own accord because they sense your tourist's weakness. There's the goat. Where? Over there. Catch it. That's dinner. But I'm a vegetarian. Now you're not. And suddenly, you realize that even a simple bowl of porridge here costs hours of carrying, digging, and sneaking up on food that has its own opinion on whether it wants to be eaten. No one is rushing to help you either, because everyone else is busy surviving. A local kid standing nearby throws another mocking comment. Even the goat here works more than you do, and it cries less. You'd happily sign a contract with that goat if only it would get you some food. When you're about ready to die from stones, from goats, with your soul on your shoulder, someone local sternly points toward the house and says, "Now sweep up and fix the roof." You're like, well, maybe this will be easy. Ha, right. Even sweeping in Sparta is a sport and part of combat training. First, they give you a broom that looks more like a spear with goat hair bristles. Keep it straight, don't spill, don't bend. This, by the way, is a great workout for your legs and back. You sweep the dust so thoroughly that it just becomes even more visible. It clings to you and whispers, "I'm still here from the last war, kiddo." Next, they send you onto the roof to repair the tiles. Yeah, sure. You crawl up, clutching wobbly boards. The local guy from below yells, "If you fall, don't scream." We're all used to it here. Somewhere someone is forging swords and spears, and the furnace smoke is choking your lungs. And even that's your job too, because everyone here can hold a hammer and sharpen knives. Don't know how? Well, then you'll learn right now. Even banging a door shut becomes an obstacle sprint. The nail is crooked, and the hammer is heavier than your whole arm. Through all this, the neighbor keeps watching and whispering his favorite. Look, you're not dead yet, so you must be able to do it. Now, when you no longer feel your back or arms or your right to rest, an old Spartan comes up and says, "Now go. You've already done more today than we expected of you, so you're dismissed." And only now do you realize that in Sparta, work isn't a means to earn a living. It's a way to become someone, even if just a little. After all those stones, goats, brooms, and roofs, you hope at least for lunch. You dream of olive oil, some cheese, honey cakes, and maybe, just maybe, Wi-Fi. But no. Lunch here is when everyone sits around the cauldron and the wooden boards, and someone lays out bread, olives, and dried meat. The bread, by the way, is the same you already fought with for breakfast. It hasn't gotten any softer. If anything, overnight it looks even more like a chunk of a shield. "Eat it before it cools," says the uncle to your left, handing you a piece. Olives. Yes, there are some, but they're so bitter, you begin to suspect this is just a test of how much more suffering you're willing to endure. Next to you, someone is gnawing on dried meat that looks more like a war drum's cord, washing it down with wine. Wine. You were hoping for something gentle and fruity, but Spartan wine is basically water with a ratio of 1 grape per bucket. Just enough so you don't die of thirst. You look at the neighbor, who's calmly chewing on that rock-hard bread as if it were ice cream. "Tasty," he says, nodding contentedly. "Tasty." And you take a second piece, even though your inner child screams, "I said falafel, not this." So now you're sitting on a wooden bench trying not to look like too much of a tourist. But rest assured, everyone knows you're a tourist. Here, even eating feels like going into battle. First, nobody says enjoy your meal. Almost no one talks during eating, because even dinner is training for speed and endurance. The neighbor to your left breaks off a piece of bread with a snap, like an old bone, and looks at you like he's checking whether you'll manage to chew it or choke immediately. Second, if you thought you could leisurely spread olive paste on your bread, forget it. Here people eat fast, purposefully, with no sentimentality. They break the bread with their hands. The meat, too. And even the olive can be eaten with the pit and all. You try to impale an olive with a fork and immediately get a fierce look. We don't do that here. How do we do it? You ask. With your hands, they say, and in silence. We don't talk while eating here, because every bite is earned, and nobody wants you wasting it on chatter about the weather or Netflix. Finally, someone in the group breaks the silence and says dryly, "Whoever has wine left, drink up. Those who didn't get any, there'll be more tomorrow." Then everyone eats on in silence again, as if to a drum beat you can't hear but feel on your skin. At last, everyone finishes. Bread is demolished, olives devoured, wine gone. You're dreaming that now, maybe for 5 minutes, you could rest. Maybe even nap in the sun like in those Greek resort ads. Well, guess what? Number. In Sparta, lunch doesn't end in dessert or a nap. Lunch ends when they haul you off the bench and say, "Now training so you don't grow fat." You look at them, shaking your head as if trying to wake up. "But we just ate," you plead. "Does the enemy wait for you?" they say. Someone goes to get weapons ready. Someone stretches. Someone runs straight to the training ground. Someone else starts cleaning up after everyone. Because even cleaning here is movement, and movement is life. You dare to sit for another minute, only to hear behind you, "Don't sit, only the dead rest." So you stand up, because by now you've learned the main rule of Sparta. Even a minute of rest is a luxury you must earn. After you've worked and eaten, they finally let you go home. You're happy, because you think, at last, a cozy cottage, a warm house, a soft bed. I can even watch a little TV. Huh? Yeah, sure. You're seeing your Spartan family for the first time. There's no, "Let's hug and watch" cartoons. The children are serious, frowns on their faces, running around the house with wooden spears, practicing smashing pots. Dad sits by the fire, sharpening a knife, giving you a sideways glance as if you've already lost a competition with him. Mom looks like a squad commander, and only ever allows herself a little ironic smile. You try making small talk. "So, how was your day?" But no one answers. Only the 10-year-old grumbles, "Day? We had the Battle of Thermopylae. That's what the day was." Evening routine is like this. The children line up and report on their day. One says, "I learned how to hide a dagger properly in my shield." The other, "I learned not to scream when my finger got broken." Father nods approvingly and tosses more wood on the fire. Mother wraps the youngest in a wool cloak, but even that doesn't look like an act of tenderness, more like a strategy to preserve a fighter. You stand in the corner thinking, "Excuse me, where's the family hug here? Where are the herbal teas and the cat on your lap?" Then Mother looks at you and says, "Well, are you just going to sit there like a goat in the snow, or will you help cook dinner?" You nod and go help, because by now you understand. In a Spartan family, nobody sits idle and nobody whines. Here, family is your first battle unit, and everyone must be ready. So you help in the kitchen and truly feel like part of the battle unit. Eventually the family sits around the fire. You wait, expecting sweet small talk. "How was your day? Anything new? Maybe a bedtime story?" Huh, no. Even bedtime stories here are military instructions. Father takes the wine jug, drinks, and begins. "It happened during the campaign in Arcadia. We 3 remained against 50. The children listen as intently as we listen to podcasts about betrayals and intrigues. Mother interrupts, throwing another log on the fire. But then you didn't know that behind the mountain there was another 100 waiting. There's always someone waiting behind another mountain, says Father. The children nod and draw conclusions. You try to joke, any fun stories? Father raises an eyebrow. Fun story? Like how your brother and I went 3 days without water and lived? That was fun. A neighbor boy in the corner adds, and it was fun when a wolf bit Grandpa's pants off and he didn't even stop. Everyone laughs. Everyone except you, because you've already pictured that wolf and that grandpa, and it's absolutely not funny in your head. Another evening ritual. Teach the younger ones a new rule. Today's rule? If you have a choice to go or lie down, go. You'll lie down when you feel nothing anymore. The children repeat it in chorus like a mantra. You repeat it too, because it's awkward being the only one not in the know. While everyone else settles for the night, you realize something. Family Idol in Sparta is not about warmth and coziness. It's about discipline, survival stories, and the feeling that you are just one link in a chain. The kids have calmed down a bit. Well, meaning they only fight once a minute now. Father is sharpening his knife by the fire again, and Mother checks that all the shields are stacked by the door. You're hoping they'll lead you to a cozy room and tuck you into a clean bed. No. They don't even ask if you want to sleep. They just point to the straw mat on the floor and say, "That's your spot. If someone comes, scoot over." You look at the mat. It's prickly like an angry hedgehog. Where the kids lie, the straw is already mashed into the floor like an old shield. Mother throws you a woolen cloak and dryly adds, "Don't whine. We all sleep like this." You lay down, trying to find even one soft corner, and you realize this is harder than hauling those stones. Someone next to you snores. Someone's softly reciting tomorrow's rules. Even the children twitch in their sleep as if they're still training. And this nighttime silence, it's so perfect here. You hear the fire crackling, sand shifting on the floor, and something, hopefully the goat, scratching behind the door. And everyone lies ready for action, hands next to shields, feet pointed at the door, eyes closed but ready to open at any sound. You whisper to yourself, "Get through until morning. Just survive until breakfast." You think, finally night, time to relax and sleep. In Sparta, night isn't so much rest as another test, a night shift without pay. It's so dark, as if that black broth spilled across the sky. Even the moon isn't shining. Maybe it's scared too. The Spartan home falls still. But you notice everyone lies there as if on alert. Even the children, even Grandpa in the corner, hands by shields, legs toward the door. Eyes seem closed, but the instant you stir, someone hisses, "Don't rustle." Outside the door you hear the sounds of night. An owl hoots. Something scrapes at the stone. From time to time in the distance someone practices in the darkness, spears clattering. It feels like even the silence here is working out your nerves. You try to close your eyes, but the mat is hard. The straw pricks, and the thought keeps nagging. What if there's an attack? What if someone comes and shouts, "Get up"? Now you lie there just barely drifting off, listening to the wind moaning outside the wall and whispering to you, "Good night, tourist. May you dream of another day here." You start dozing, when suddenly there's a dull thud. Something fell behind the door. Someone coughed, and instantly the house comes to life. The kids leap up in an instant. Mom already has something sharp in her hand. Dad silently grabs his shield and nods at you. "Sit down. You wouldn't make it anyway." You sit, hardly breathing, and watch them all be ready in 5 seconds to fend off an invisible enemy while you hug your blanket like a lifeboat in a storm. After a minute, it all quiets down again. Father goes back to his place, tosses you a nod. Well, get used to it. And you understand. Here, even in the middle of the night, everyone's alert, because while you sleep, the enemy does not. And even dreams here are not about rest. You just closed your eyes and you're running with a shield down a stone road. You're covered in sweat and sand, and even in the black broth for some reason. You lift the stone again, you catch the goat and stuff olives in your backpack. Through the dream you hear voices. Rest faster. Tomorrow will be even harder. You wake up in a cold sweat and think, where are those dreams about spa and a glass of ice cream? Where are the cats? Where's Instagram? They're not here. Even dreams are part of the training here, so that when you actually have to get up in the middle of the night, you're already prepared. Finally, you do fall asleep. At some point, your brain gives in and says, okay, half an hour. And precisely half an hour later, you are awakened not by birdsong and gentle sunshine. No, you're woken by a foot. Yes, someone's foot nudging you. Wake up. The master is already angry, a voice says dryly as he takes his shield off the hook. The children are already standing. It feels like none of them even lay down. One is tying his woolen belt, another is already hopping on one foot, practicing not to fall. You blink, and only now notice the dawn light in the doorway. It's not gentle at all. It's firing right into your eyes. And only one thought goes through your head. There's no air conditioner. There's Ra. And Ra, the sun, is angry. The neighbor boy passing by throws you a little jab. If you don't get up yourself, they'll pick you up, and not very gently. So you spring to your feet, trying to look alert, even though your legs are still half asleep and would much rather negotiate with that hated bed. But there's no time. The sun is already shooting its first beam of flame, and the only thing you think is, I'm a warrior. I'm strong. At least I'm not last. In Sparta, there is no convalescence. If at any moment you think, I'm feeling sick, they'll decide you're useless. If you don't get up, they carry you out, not to a hospital, just out there with a broken something, and wrap you in wool to run more. They'll say, eat some broth, take more salt, drink some wine. If that doesn't cure you, well, that's not illness, that's character. Pain is seen as a test from the gods. Either you push it aside, or it becomes a part of you. When you survive, even with a cough and bruises, they just nod at you and say, alive. Well, fine. Now go train. If you're sick too long, they start to ask, is this illness or a habit? You nod and stumble out into the sun to train, just to prove you're still useful. Nobody here is waiting for you to get better. They expect you to get up and do your duty, so it seems you've recovered from the night and the sickness. Time to study, someone says. Are you happy? You think maybe now textbooks, desks, chalk, a bell. Ha! Right. In Spartan school, the first thing you see is not books. It's a stick and stones. And the teacher's glare that says, if you survive, you'll get a diploma. Education here starts with lining you up in rows and forcing you to stand for hours under the blazing sun until you learn not to collapse and not to beg for water. Reading and writing? Well, they might teach you enough to write a letter to your mother, if you're alive that long. But the main lesson here is to survive and not bring shame. They teach you to endure pain without tears, to steal food without getting caught, or you face punishment, to sleep outdoors without freezing, not to fear the dark or the swamp or even the hissing of goats. Math lessons? Sure, but they look like how many enemies are in front of you. Count them and cut them in half with your sword. And literature is more like composing a song about how you didn't die today. Another key lesson: silence. You learn to keep your tongue tightly in your cheek and answer briefly, sharply, and to the point. That's where the word laconic comes from. Lacedaemon, Sparta. At graduation, nobody throws hats in the air, because even graduation is just another training day. And when you come out of Spartan school beaten and exhausted, someone asks you, "Ready?" And you don't even ask what exactly you're ready for, because the answer is always the same: yes. So you have mastered the school of survival, and you think, well, maybe at least the gods here will be merciful. Yeah, right. Religion in Sparta is not about candles, choral psalms, or sitting in quiet pews. It's another obligation, another way to prove you're part of the community and not just a boiled turnip. Sacrifice? Absolutely, but not with flowers and chocolate. Here it means a goat or a bull, and the fatter the animal, the better. At festivals, blood is poured on the altar, and everyone watches solemnly to see if the gods are pleased. Prayers? They exist, but they're short and businesslike. No, oh God, please give us health and a discount on coffee. Here it's more like, grant us victory. If not, give us a good death. There are many temples, all grand but cold, because even in religion there's no place for warm feelings. The gods in Sparta are just as demanding coaches as all the others. They watch. If you live life like a wet rag, the gods will turn away. But if you stand firm, even with a pierced shield and 3 arrows in your leg, they'll nod and say, "Not bad, kid." Religion here imposes discipline even more strongly than a teacher's rod. You've grown used to everything being stern and harsh, so you ask, well, maybe at least culture is cultural here? Ha ha ha. Sparta's culture isn't about painting pastoral scenes or playing lyres under a grapevine. It's about always being ready, even on holidays. Everything they call a celebration is another test. Holidays? Sure, they have those, but they look like huge military games. Kids and adults compete to see who can endure the most pain or run fastest with a stone on their shoulder, all while chanting some ancient battle song like a storm, loud and without a trace of joy. Dancing. Yes, there are dances, but they look more like drill exercises. Everyone moves in tight formation. No improvisation. It's like choreography for a phalanx. Step, strike, step, strike. Salute to the deities. Step, repeat. The theater is a bit better. In the evenings, the youth gather and perform scenes from myths, but always with a moral. Betrayal ends in defeat. Cowardice ends in death. Standing to the end means you're a hero. Another tradition, storytelling. Everyone sits around the fire, and an elder tells how once he climbed a mountain with bare hands and killed a wolf. The children listen, solemnly nodding, while you just sit there dreaming of Netflix and hot cocoa. Culture and tradition here aren't meant to amuse. They are meant to keep you always aware that you are a Spartan, and there's no other way. So after all this training, sacrifices, songs, and stern looks, of course you start to naively hope. When do they rest here? Just a little? Maybe at a spa? Maybe on a beach chair? No. Rest in Sparta is not what you think. Here, rest is when no one yells at you and no one hits you. Sometimes they even let you sit for a few minutes doing nothing on a rock. Just sitting without dying is already a luxury. Occasionally, there might be a celebration where everyone gathers and drinks wine from jugs, just enough so they stay alert. You can't be too merry. What if an enemy attacks while you're laughing? Youngsters sometimes play simple games. Who can throw a stone farther? Who can lie in the snow the longest without falling asleep? Yes, that's also called recreation. There's another pastime, listening to elders tell old war stories. You sit and listen as Grandpa tells how he walked on foot to Arcadia, ate 3 wolves there, and returned without a leg. And everyone chants, "Well done." Sometimes they let you gaze at the stars. Even then, someone will quietly whisper, "It's nice up there." But don't forget, they're watching you too. In Sparta, rest doesn't mean the body lying down. It means the spirit still on guard. After all these days, which were actually nights in disguise, after all the training, sacrifices, songs, battles, and sitting on rocks, you begin to understand. Even death here is not an end, but another test. Death in Sparta comes in 2 forms. The good death on the battlefield, sword in hand, eyes on the enemy, and the bad death somewhere quietly under a blanket, unnoticed by all. In the first case, you are honored. They sing songs about you, and might even hang your shield on the wall in your memory. In the second case, it's better they don't even speak your name. Graves here are simple. A stone, a little earth, maybe a helmet placed beside it. No marble, no angels, no inscriptions like "Rest in peace, dear one." At most, something brief, as everything is here. He stood, he did not fall. In their imagination, the afterlife is a great plain where you meet all your ancestors. They, stern and formidable, look you in the eye and ask, "Did you live with honor?" And you must answer clearly and without embellishment. Yes, because even after death in Sparta, there is no hammock rest. There is only another phalanx, another battle, and another chance not to be disgraced. You lived through this day, and it felt like 3 wars and 5 diets at once. You saw how they live on stone, with sand in their ears, with a wolf for a pet, and a knife for a toothpick. You ran, you fell, you got up, you slept on straw, you counted the stars and dreamed of a shower with air conditioning, and honestly, all this time, only one thing spun through your head. Why? This is madness. Why put yourself through this? But at some point, watching how they battered and battered silently, leave the house, line up in formation, look each other in the eyes and nod, you suddenly begin to understand. They do this not for themselves alone, not for likes or medals or praise. They do it for each other, so that a friend stands by their side who will never abandon them, so that mothers are proud, so that their children learn to stand firm when it's scary and hold on when it's hard. In this cold stone Sparta, there is warmth, not in blankets and hummus, but in the eyes of those beside you, and in the knowledge that you are not alone, even dignity when lying on straw, even happiness when your legs ache, and hope when you think you cannot go on. Sparta is a place where they won't let you fall, even if they don't let you relax. But maybe that's their strange, harsh, true kind of happiness, being part of something bigger than yourself. Even here, even without Wi-Fi and smoothies, that feeling warms you.